Good evening. I'm speaking to you on a very cold, blustery winter's night, January the 28th, 2019. We've just turned the page of a new year. And hopefully we will be able to accomplish the many soul-searching gifts that we are looking for. From my prior video, if you will recall, my name is Alina, and I visited the Anne Frank house back in the 90s. And upon departing from the Anne Frank house, many messages and all kinds of information through a process known as automatic writing came through to me. In the first video that I did, it was called Part 1 of the 12 Commandments. One of the many pieces of insight and writing that came through was called the 12 Commandments. And if you had seen my first video, you would know that in the 12 Commandments, I covered the first 3. The first one speaks about speaking the truth, how vital, how critical it is to speak truth from our hearts, our souls, our minds, our beings. And in order to be able to speak the truth, it is also vital to actually seek it, to go out and find what is the truth. What are the universal truths that guide each and every one of us and propel the creation known as humankind? And the third, equally important, commandment of the first 3 was to feel your pain and to let it go. In other words, feel the entirety of the pain within your soul, your being, your heart, and then acknowledge and release its content, because while pain is uncomfortable and we've been taught to avoid it, to put on a happy face, to do anything but feel its impact, pain is in fact the gift that enables, once we feel it in its entirety, enables us to feel compassion. And compassion is the bedrock of being able to feel true love. And so now, this evening, I will continue with the next of the 12 commandments. The 4th commandment is to acknowledge your needs. Those words sound and seem very simple to do, but in fact, they're quite complex, because, first of all, in order to acknowledge what your needs are, you need to know what they are. You need to have given yourself permission to know what it is that you are needing emotionally, physically, and every other way. So many of us have been shut down to the point where we simply don't know, have no idea what we truly need, or we're in denial of what it is that we need. And therefore, acknowledging what you need is in effect part of seeking the truth and speaking the truth. It's an extension of that. Because if you have sought to know who you are and what you need, then you then be in the position of knowing what those vital needs are. The next commandment talks about the following. It says, hold each man in your embrace and look into his eyes. Now imagine if every time you saw your friend or a family member or even someone you didn't know. In Europe, it's not at all uncommon for men and women, women and women, men and men, to embrace each other, give each other a heartfelt hug. It's less so in this country. But this commandment tells us to take it even one step further. Not only are we commanded to embrace one another, but to look into the windows of the soul, look into each other's eyes. And through that looking into one another's eyes, a vital life connection is made. Two souls are then communicating with one another at the deepest level. And when you think about it, when that kind of vital life connection is made, it's very difficult to come out with hurtful thoughts or feelings or statements. We would tend to be more loving and kind to each other if we took that step, that simple step. The next commandment says to speak in order to empower. Speak to empower. That is an enormous commandment. Again, so many of us have been taught life lessons from a negative perspective, which is don't do this, don't go here, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't create, whatever they are, they're negative intentions. Well, this is the converse of that, which tells us that when we speak with other people, we ought to speak on their behalf, for their benefit, in order to make them feel higher rather than lower, to acknowledge truths about who they are in order to empower them or to enable them to self-empower. And the same goes for ourself, our oneself. So many times when we are engaged in deep thoughts or maybe just experiencing the monkey mind, so many times what goes through the mind is all the negativity and the naysayers and the no can do thoughts. So the very same thing applies for us, so that we have a little voice inside our head that will say, I can do this. I can create. I can make it happen. I can forge that valley. I can. I can. So not only is it critical to speak words, to empower others, because when we give someone the gift of self-empowerment, the energy that is created will infuse us as much as it will infuse that other person. And so we are benefiting at least two souls when we speak to others with the intention of empowering them and making them feel genuinely good. And so we speak to empower, we think to empower, we speak within ourselves with our own voice in order to empower ourselves. The next commandment, and I'm going to just go over all of them that we've gone through so far from top to bottom. The first one is to speak the truth. Next one is to seek the truth. Third one is to feel your pain and release it, let it go. The fourth one is to acknowledge your needs. The fifth one is to hold each man, which means human, male or female, in your embrace and look into their eyes. The next one is to speak to empower. Speak to empower to others. Have a voice within our own head that speaks to us to empower us every step of the way. After that, the next commandment is to be vulnerable. Now, what does that mean exactly? If you are in a state of vulnerability, you're in a state of receiving. If you're vulnerable, you don't have walls around you, because walls essentially cut you off from other people. I'm not suggesting that we be vulnerable in a foolish way, but I'm saying to be vulnerable, that the commandment speaks of being vulnerable in a genuine and heartfelt way, so that your soul can listen to what others have to say, and so that you yourself can listen to your own soul and hear what it is saying to you and how it's guiding you always, every step of your journey. So the commandment is to be vulnerable. Thereafter, it talks about, the next commandment is to be humble. How critical and important is that? What's the opposite of being humble? The opposite of being humble is being in ego. And what does it mean exactly to be an ego? To be an ego is to have a false sense of superiority, that you are more than, that you are greater than others. And the moment you have those thoughts and you act those thoughts out in actions, a divide occurs between you and others. You separate, you move away from, rather than moving towards any emotional connection. So when you remain in a state of genuine humility and humbleness, you leave yourself open to receiving whatever the human experience has to offer, whether that has to do with connecting with other people, whether that has to do with simply being able to receive in the joy, the beauties of any given day, and the bounties and the blessings, and we all have so many blessings to be grateful for. Whether it means any or all of those things, being in a state of humbleness or humility will enable you to then open up and receive all the blessings that are before you at any given moment. The next commandment says, judge no man. As the saying goes, unless we've walked a mile in someone else's shoes, unless we know how they've journeyed, where they are emotionally, spiritually, physically at any given moment, or what their life purpose is, we don't know any of these things for the most part. Judging someone, anyone, is yet another way of creating a wall, a barrier between yourself and that other person or those other people. And the moment you create the barrier, you essentially are putting yourself in the position of being isolated in one form or another, and also of not being able to receive any truths, uncomfortable or otherwise, which may or could flow from those that you're choosing to judge. And judgment is another way of pronouncing that you are greater than, or better than, or more than someone else. And the fact of and the truth of the matter is, we are not better than anyone, or greater than anyone. Our souls were all created in the same image. Our souls are the connectors to the great Creator. Our souls are the equality, they are the equality that binds us all together. And so, the commandment is to judge no man, but rather, again, to being in receiving mode, listening, hearing, allowing, without judgment. Commandment after this one is to waste not. We are a very abundant country. We have a great deal. We have more than most countries. I remember going to Europe and visiting a department store, and it was rare to be able to get a bag into which you've placed your purchases into. You kind of brought your own bags. Well, it's a simple example of how we take so many things for granted, and we throw so much away, whether it's food or physical material things or just about anything. It's really telling us to be in appreciation for every small thing and to recognize its worth, to know its value, and to give it its proper place, acknowledging and not wasting. The next commandment is to cherish the body that entrusts your soul. So very, very important. We're given this gift of a human body through which our ethereal soul operates. And this body is a work of absolute amazement. We think, we breathe, we move, we feel, we experience, we know, we create things with our hands. It's amazing what our bodies are capable of, and in fact, our bodies and our thought patterns are capable of far more than we could ever imagine at this time. That being said, it is vital to be conscious about how we treat our bodies, the foods we place into our bodies, what we do with our bodies physically, sexually, socially. Our bodies are the citadel of our souls, and therefore need to be cherished and loved and appreciated. And so with that, I have provided you the last of the 12 commandments, which I'm going to reiterate one more time from beginning to end. At some point, I will be able to reference this writing for anyone that chooses to download it, print it out. So again, here are the 12 commandments. Speak the truth, for it is the light of your soul. Seek the truth, for only in seeking it can you speak it. Feel your pain and let it go. It is the ultimate gift of all creation when it is felt and creates the bedrock of love. Acknowledge your needs. Give yourself permission to know what your emotional, physical, mental, spiritual needs are. Acknowledge and fulfill. Hold each human in your embrace and look into their eyes, for the eyes are the windows of the soul, and you will connect soul to soul, engaging in an act of love, giving and receiving. Speak to empower, so that the voice within your head empowers you every step of your human spiritual journey, and the words coming through your lips will bring an uplifting energy to all those you connect with when you speak to empower them as well. Be vulnerable, be genuinely vulnerable, so you open up the floodgates of receiving the bounties and the miraculous blessings that are all around us. Be humble, filled with humility, for no human is better than another. And in that humility, you leave yourself in a state of receiving and receiving innumerable gifts. Judge no man. Judgments only create barriers. Barriers separate, and separation creates isolation. Judge no man, but simply be in a state of openness and receiving without judgment. Waste not. We have been given so much on this planet, in this country, beyond imagination. Cherish everything, all there is. Acknowledge the beauty of all you have been given and waste not. Cherish the body that entrusts your soul. Your soul is the everlasting, eternal spirit force that is expressing through the body. The body is a miraculous instrument that can see and hear and think and be and feel and move and create. It is beyond belief, a miracle. So trust, cherish, and trust the body that entrusts your soul. Cherish it every step of the way. And the very last commandment is to pray. It's been shown that when groups of people direct their energetic life force towards a person, a situation, an event, that prayer is an enormously powerful energy force that can change and mold and create greatness. So the last commandment is to pray. And so I leave you with these 12 commandments, and I give you all my blessings for a good night.